Vegetarian restaurants going the way of the dinosaur. States now passing laws so farms cannot sell directly to you. All the while, our food's being traced on the blockchain, along with the GMO enzymes in 90% of American cheeses. Right off the Guardian, the hub of the hub in London, with the chic scene of veggies, nonprofit restaurant out of business. Well, then they had to get an emergency capital injection so the movement wouldn't die, because the top place in London was going under. So to keep the illusion and keep the dream alive, they had to bring it back from the crypt. As you can see, plant-based problems, vegetarian restaurants closing or adding meat to the menu. So it's a real world thing where they understand there is an ROI and there is a bottom line, and you lose money if you sell or push what people don't want to buy. And they go through the article, quite well written. I actually went through several of them, which I linked below. They try to blame the public for not going. That's the whole thing. You, the public, for not going to these places is because you are a bad person and you have been sort of washed through the rhetoric of oversimplified discourse about protein, ultra-processed foods. No, you're going to shrivel away. All these other diets like the keto diet are coming out. And this is driving people away from veganism. And because you haven't frequented this restaurant, you are a naughty, bad person causing all the ills in the world, because you're listening to somebody else and not going to and supporting these restaurants. That's basically what it's that is. So you don't have to read it yourself. The Guardian put out a bunch, and the other people's opinions that are out on this thing. The biggest restaurant in the scene apparently was Unity, and it was a not-for-profit restaurant. Well, if you're going, they expected people just to leave money on what they had expected the value of the meal to be. And they had community events and this sort of thing, all based around, animal safety, and no, you can't have factory farms and you can't graze cattle and all these other things, the talking points, checklist, check them all off the box. It was the hub of the hub, but it went under. So it had to be brought back up again. So now we're in a landscape here where, just generally, as it shows here, between January and March, UK experienced 20 restaurant, pub, and hotel closures per week. That's on the just general basis of what you've always known as like a place to go out to eat, or a bar to go to, a pub, that sort of thing, in downtown London. 20 a week. And then the vegan restaurant was expecting that everybody was just going to continue to frequent it because it was just there. This is the whole misnomer with this thing about the narrative pushes for certain lifestyles, that there's not enough population in London, even in London, to support these restaurants. And they're wondering why they're going out of business. Well, people just aren't on board with it anymore. You were hoaxed into it originally, and it was pushed for a while. And I guess if enough people had tried it and it didn't catch on by now, after 15 or 20 years of hardcore messaging, then it's not viable. Which brings me to the next point. I was always saying since the beginning of this Adapt 2030 channel, we're going to have to adapt our food growing strategies before 2030. And one of them was going to be community gardens, growing your own food, and also knowing where your local farmers were to be able to either access food or go out and help them so you could have access to food. If you're getting close to retirement or just thinking ahead, you've probably done a solid job of saving. But here's something most people don't consider. How much of that money is just sitting in cash? It might feel safe, but holding too much cash guarantees one thing: you're losing purchasing power. Inflation eats away at it, and the dollar's value keeps slipping. That's why more people are looking at real assets like physical gold and silver to protect their savings. And one company makes that easy: Noble Gold Investments. You can buy gold, silver, coins, bars. They'll ship to your home, or you can have it stored securely. It's a smart way to convert cash into something that actually holds value. Visit 2030gold.com. That's 2030gold.com. Because when you own real assets, you own real wealth. And please remember, Noble Gold, fair, transparent. They're not going to pressure you. They're going to give you actual information and real options in which to make good decisions. Again, that's 2030gold.com. Click on that link in the description box below. And now legislation. Here's the first one, squarely, soundly, hard nail hitting Oregon saying, farmers, you're not allowed to open your doors anymore to the public. And those fruit side and the vegetable side road stands that you used to have, no, there's now permits, zoning requirements, and it has to be built to a certain specification, or you're not even allowed to have it on your own property next to the road to sell like it is in summer. Hey, stop, get the corn from the farmer. Not anymore. Melons, nope. Venues where you could go and you could go U-Picks, nope. Stop it in Oregon. You can't even have events where you use the produce from the farm to have like farm to table experience. Wineries had said, no more. They are absolutely trying to stop the public from being able to access food on the farms. They're trying to drive all farmers back into just regular agribiz. So a lot of these farms here would get 25% at least of their total yearly revenue just from hosting events and selling small goods as whatever would be in a farm store, or you come in and there's like, hey, there's a t-shirt from this farm or something like that. You're not allowed to do that anymore, apparently, but there's been some pushback and it's still ongoing in the courts, whether it will be allowed or not. So far, there's been a lot of pushback. Like, you're telling us we can't even sell the whole thing was they tried to get these farmers to move to this direction to try to bring up what they call agri-tourism. And now they're saying, since a huge tidal wave of them came into this and now are sort of successful at it, now they're trying to stop that. And I wonder why. That's the whole question. Is they brought us up to here and they moved the entire genre of farming away from just industrial farms, just growing corn and soy, whatnot, bring them up into the public arena. And now they're like, no, you can't sell to the public arena. Go back to the original agribiz model. Strange. And that's what the whole thing is. All these regulations now, I even saw one part of it where they were saying that it required 41 different changes of the farm stall stand, the way it was built. And they would have an inspector come out and look at it. And if it was even 1 nail off, 1 inch off on the dimensions of it, how it has got to be standardized across the state, they would say not permit you. And you would have to make changes to the farm stall, schedule another appointment, and then have to pay the fee and then come out again. This is the kind of ridiculousness that's going on. Now, once it starts in one state, it rolls to others. California's going something similar. Washington's considering it. So where does that take us? Now, the one thing about Washington, they were going strictly for the vineyards right now, but they will soon go to the apple orchards and the blueberry farms where you can't go U-Pick anymore. Same, but different, as the whole West Coast is doing this. So what's that telling you about the movement to try to separate us from the food at the source? So if you can't get it in the supermarket, where would you go naturally? Yeah, you'll go to the farm, but now they're stopping the farmers from being able to sell to you. And then the very last sentence there, the reason they were trying to categorize this, they were trying to recategorize everybody as a rural grocery store. Again, more permits, more fees for the state to take in. And then the separation with all the hurdles, people were just not going to be able to do that. And here's that slide I was telling you about. 41 conditions were imposed on the specific stall requirements. But then this also, how many, they were even as fine tuning and splitting hair as how many baked goods you could produce in a day and sell, and what kind of baked goods you could produce on your own farm and bake and sell from your own grain production. That's the level it's gone to. This is insanity. Must stop. Hopefully we can get some support out there in Oregon to stop this type of madness. Because while all this is happening, the track and trace of all foodstuffs across the planet is in motion. The blockchain for agri-food traceability, sponsored by the United Nations Development Program, i.e. World Bank, and the IMF, they're all pushing for this. They're wondering, how's this going to get funded? Well, the IMF's going to roll it out. The IMF's going to roll it out into countries that can't afford it, and then they're going to get those loan stipulations. But you have to have this, or else you're not going to be able to sell into markets in the future. Everything's being tracked and traced on the blockchain. So I linked the report for you. I encourage you to read it. And you'd be shocked. Like, you're going to force these countries that don't have the infrastructure in there to take on loans to push in the infrastructure, or their exports won't be viable even in like inter-Africa trade. They're not going to allow them. They're setting up a global system of track and trace on the food. If your country's not in it, you're not able to operate in the system. That's another pinch point. Going at it global on this one. It's a global food tracking program. GMO enzymes, they're called fermentation produced chymosin, FPC, not on the labels, but it's in 90% of American cheeses. Here's the cheese made with rennet. But now look at this. They're going to, last paragraph, from GMO bacteria, mold, or yeast. Yep, not labeled in 90% of American cheese. Buyer beware. But that's tracked on the blockchain too, so you can see where your GMO yeast came from. Awesome. At least you'll be able to track your doubly priced steaks from 2024 to 2025. Everywhere you look, prices are going up. And that's the reason I keep bringing you the information on the Adapt 2030 channel, just like this. So you can share with your friends and family, start the conversations, bring them in. What's happening? The entire world's pivoting, but it seems like a large segment's left behind because they don't know the pivots in real time. I do appreciate you watching. Please support independent journalism, Monero, and Pirate Chain. Those deposit addresses are in the description box below, along with Victory Nutrition International, Trim Rocks. Looks like candy, works like science, burn, boost, balance. VNI.life/civilization. Uses code CYCLE20 to take 20% off your order, because every purchase you make helps keep this channel on air. I'll see you next time. Bye for now.